Happy Friday. Welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan with Steve Sipple, as always, as we try to dissect, break down all the news headlines of the week. And Sip, we took it all the way up to showtime because that's what we do. We go out and we hold the show and want to make sure we get everything into the show that you want to hear about. And right as we're getting ready to tape this week's Husker Online Headlines on Friday, some breaking news out of Bellevue West. Daniel Kaelin officially announced his decommitment from Missouri. And this is big because you know what it means. I mean,
what does it mean,
Sean? You look at the timeline. Dylan Raiola commits to Georgia Monday. Then from this week on, behind the scenes, you have to anticipate that there was a full court press by Nebraska over this week to Daniel Kaelin at Bellevue West, who's been a Missouri commit now for a good amount of time. And, you know, to give Daniel Kaelin credit, he had to play the cards he had. In Nebraska, he did not have a committable offer because of the situation with Raiola. And he knew that. He understood the situation, and he jumped on the opportunity to go play at Missouri. Well, today he announced that decommitment now from Missouri the same week that Dylan Raiola commits to Georgia. There were only two quarterbacks that this staff was actively recruiting this cycle. Dylan Raiola, Daniel Kaelin. I'm a simple man from South Omaha. You're a simple man from Columbus, Nebraska. Doesn't take a rocket scientist, Steve Sipple, to figure out what's going on here.
No, it doesn't. And it is significant. I mean, and you know, Drinkwitz recruited Kaelin hard. I mean, Drinkwitz poured himself into that. This is not small for Missouri. But you see what's going on here. It's pretty evident, and it's important because this is the quarterback of the 2024 class, and that's huge in a lot of ways.
And it's important because look at the quarterback depth chart. Okay. Jeff Sims, you got him for 1 year, 2 years max. He could have one good year and be gone. He could play here for 2 years.
Yep.
Chubba Purdy, you kind of know what you have there. Is that a guy that Matt Rule is going to build the future of Nebraska around?
You haven't seen it from Chubba at this point.
Like at this point, it's fair to say they're not going to say, all right, we're going to go all in to build Chubba Purdy as the guy. And then hire Carberg. You know, he's a talented athlete, but is that the guy they want to build it all around? Or does he have a better role as maybe a runner and a dual threat guy? But yeah, for Daniel Kaelin, he could come in and look at that empty box there. Freshman, redshirt freshman. There's nobody in these boxes.
Right.
So then he would come in the next year after, and there's quite a gap because when the time he would get here, Harburg and Purdy would be juniors. Sims would be a senior. And look at those empty white boxes in front of him. So for him, it's an ideal situation. He's a local guy. Matt Rule has been openly honest. In fact, do you know who the first recruit Matt Rule followed on Twitter was when he took the job?
Who?
Daniel Kaelin.
Daniel Kaelin.
First recruit. And I talked to Daniel about that. I go, he's like, that's pretty cool. I'm the first recruit he followed. And this is back well back when. So he's been a priority for Rule, but the situation with Raiola, number one ranked quarterback in the country, 5-star guy, legacy, they could not, not let that play out. They had to let that play out. And they did.
They did.
And it appears Nebraska has operated and moved very quickly to where Raiola to Georgia Monday, by week's end Friday, all of a sudden Daniel Kaelin announces his decommitment to Missouri.
You have a good relationship with the Bellevue West coach. You have seen Kaelin. Sean, what do you think? I know you're not a coach, but you've watched a lot of football. How would you evaluate Daniel Kaelin?
Well, he's very cerebral, very mature. He's a savant is how,
he sees the field.
He sees things different.
Yeah.
Talks like a coach.
Does he?
Like his IQ, when they do those IQ tests, his IQ test numbers are off the chart. And that's what Mike Huffman's told me. He grew up all the way out in the Elkhorn, West Omaha area, went to Bellevue West. I believe he was homeschooled. Then he attended Elkhorn St. Pat's as a young kid.
Here we go.
Junior high.
Here we go.
And was originally, Steve, going to go to Creighton Prep.
Okay.
And then Creighton
Coach
Prep, there's the quarterback, the recruiting and things that go on in Omaha. There's a lot that goes on there. And there was another kid named Parker Lisey, I believe, that was going to go to prep,
Mhm.
and some of these things changed his mind. And then that's when he went to Bellevue West, and obviously has gone on and had a great career at Bellevue West. Last year, though, was actually his first full year as a starter.
Right. We're seeing film of him, and he is, you
I mean,
see
he's
the
got
most
a rocket for an arm.
Yeah, you see the most impressive clips, but these are impressive clips for sure. So yeah, this is big. It could be, Sean, as far as the situation with Nebraska, we think it could unfold fast, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think by weekend it could be over.
Okay. Over.
Because he,
Well,
it
come
just,
on. I mean, we're not doing anything crazy here. He just decommitted from Missouri.
no, I mean, I think step number one has happened. And let
Right.
me tell you, that had to be a difficult conversation with Eli Drinkowitz in that Missouri coaching staff.
Yeah. Oh, real difficult.
That is, and
it's late.
And you think coaches, let me tell you, if you think coaches are going to be like, oh yeah, good for you. No, it's ugly. I mean, those calls, like I'll never forget Chris Walker when he decommitted from Wyoming to go to Nebraska.
Chris Walker.
Yeah. And Craig Bowl was livid.
Right.
I mean, livid. Like, let the kid have it at that time. And that's, these coaches put a lot of work in to win these kids and sign them. So for Missouri to lose your quarterback really
this late
on almost May 20th now.
What do they do?
Yeah, they're in a bind, and they're having some recruiting problems at Missouri. They haven't had a great year, and but anybody that takes 10 steps back and says, look, the Raiola situation, he's an in-state kid. There's just a lot there that this makes too much sense.
There is, and this is recruiting, and it's tough. These coaches, there's just a lot of things that come up, and you have to be light on your feet and ready to adjust. But in some cases, there's only so much adjusting you can do. I would say, thank God for the portal. I mean, if I were Missouri, thank God for the portal, because I mean, I'm not saying it's going to solve this right away, but you always have that. You always have that.
Yeah, and let's move it on.
Yeah, move it on, Sean.
Headline number 2. I want to talk state track in Omaha.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about this on the next couple of headlines. But a lot of impressive numbers and marks came out of the state track meet in Omaha at Burke High School. By the way, it's a different event than it used to be. If you remember back in the day, it was a 2-day track meet, Friday, Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturday was some magical day. And it was always a fun event because it would be a clash of all the communities of the state in one venue.
Mm-hmm.
Class A, B, C, D. Now they do A and B Wednesday, Thursday during the middle of a school day at Burke High School.
Okay.
And then the C and the D kids are Friday, Saturday. And I have not met one person that thinks it's a good idea. So it's going to be interesting to see how they it's a 2-year thing that they're on right now. It was a COVID kind of deal that they did.
Yeah. One of those deals.
To limit the crowd sizes.
Okay.
But I'll be curious if they actually rework this thing back, maybe do a 3-day meet where there's prelims and other things on Thursday and then Friday, and still have that magical Saturday. Because that, when you're talking about all class gold medals, when all the days are worked together, like look at today, how much windier and chillier it was than the day before.
Good point.
How do you measure all class gold medals?
Oh, 100%.
So there's a lot of those, and that's a valid argument. But back to the results on the field in that Class A meet. Let's talk
on the track.
Let's talk 100-meter dash.
Okay.
Because you had a number of guys. Jalen Lloyd ran 10.47. Took second. It was really the first time he kind of revved up his sports car all year. I mean, it was a slow crawl back for Jalen Lloyd. He came up short to his future Nebraska track teammate Jack Gilliloy from Creighton Prep, and he ran 10.43. But as far as football notes go, Isaiah McMorris 10.65,
pretty good.
Christian Jones,
good.
A 215-pound inside linebacker, ran 10.89
at West Side,
and then Davon Hall ran 10.91. So all 8 of the times are 10.91 or better. I mean, it's
good.
That overall board of those 8 times you see from this meet, that was as good of a group as you're going to see. And there was no Malachi Coleman in that group. And Jalen Lloyd had been limited all year.
Malachi Coleman injured.
Yeah.
He had been injured.
He pulled his hammy in March.
Right. Now, Jalen Lloyd also has battled hamstring and ankle injuries this spring. Like you said, he just recently began to rev it up. We saw some great video there of him in a triple jump where he went 47, 11 and 3/4, 47, 11 and 3/4, which won it. Now he had jumped 53.5 last year, wind aided. 50 feet, 3.5 inches last year, wind aided. But he won gold, Jalen. But as we said, this spring has been tough for him.
Yeah, and the weather in Nebraska in the spring is tough too, because early in the year, it's cold, it's windy, and you're not going to put up good marks. Like, this is the time of year where you do it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't really able to kind of, train like the 100-meter. He ran an 11 flat in the prelims, but he's a pro. He knew what he had to do. He won his heat.
Okay.
You win your heat, you automatically make the finals.
You're in.
So the 3 heat winners and then the 5 wild cards, he got in as the 8th slowest time. So he had to run from lane 8.
Okay.
Which, that's a kid probably that grew up, always in lane 4, 5, or 6.
Right.
And he went from lane 8 and almost won the 100 yesterday. Gave it a run. But yeah, now he's going to transition to track at Nebraska with football. And
right. So they'll report. No, they'll report here for football. May 31st is what you've written. May 30th, May 31st.
Yeah. And this track team at Nebraska, with some of these football players they've added, and Jack Gilloy from Creighton Prep is not a football player, but he'll run track, and he's had a
big time sprinter.
And you look at Bryce Turner. Jeremiah Charles has triple jumped 50 feet this year.
Jeremiah Charles just jumped this week. He won the Texas State meet with a leap of 49, 2 1/4.
Yeah.
49, 2 1/4. So that's a little bit better than Lloyd. Conditions were probably better. But yeah, those are 2 guys. Those are 2 receivers coming in. Jeremiah Charles and Jalen Lloyd getting it done at their state meets.
So yeah, the what they've done on the track, and this is big. Matt Rule, Ed Foley, all these guys that recruit locally, especially they put
Jeremiah
a lot in.
Charles was second. I'm sorry, Sean.
And I did run into Coach Foley at the meet. Obviously, we can't talk about the recruits there, but he did say, like, man, he goes, this is no joke. The state track meet at Nebraska, the venue. He goes, when I walked in here the other day, he goes, I felt like I was at the pin relays.
Wow.
Just the amount of people. And think about what it would be if it was still back in the old days where all the classes were together in one stadium. You get 8,000, 10,000 people in that stadium to cheer on those runners. And some of those relay races are like the 4x1 and the 4x4 relays. When you have that many people in a stadium, are just magical. Like, just the energy, the drama down the stretch. I mean, I've been to a lot of Drake relays. I've been to about 5 or 6 of those in my lifetime. And that was special to see. And Coach Foley was really impressed, I know, with his first taste of the Nebraska high school track meet. Let's take it to headline number 3 now.
Okay, Sean.
Carter Nelson.
Oh boy.
Also from the Nebraska high school state track meet. I talked with Carter on Friday.
Carter Nelson, the top ranked player in the state of Nebraska.
And I had he qualified for 4 events because their 4x1 team got in as a wild card as well.
Okay.
But he only did 1 event Friday, and this is him in the high jump. I caught this on my cell phone, and he missed at 6'6". So Carter Nelson attempted a 6'6", went at 6'4". He hurt his ankle, and he did 2 weeks ago, was running routes, kind of messing around, turned his ankle again, had the ankle injury in basketball. And I just think between it all, it just, was too much. And he had only high jumped one other time all year, and he stopped at 6'1". So this was the first time that he really tried to go high. And it was only the second time in his career he's lost a track meet, he said.
Yeah. So, I mean, watch it. People are watching right now. It doesn't have the explosion. That when you see that, the first thing I thought was, that's not the explosion. That's he's jumped 7.
He's running with a brick on his foot, pretty much.
Right, Sean. He's gone 7 foot. Okay. I mean, that he didn't get 6'6" there. So
yeah, anybody that's critical and say he didn't win, he's hurt. Like, he's not healthy.
Oh, I'm not being critical. I'm just saying you see
and
he doesn't have his
explosion. So that was 6'4", right?
Okay, there's 6'4". He missed at 6'6".
He missed his first attempt at 6'4". That was his first attempt at 6'4".
Oh, I'm sorry.
So he missed. I taped 5 jumps, the 2 6'4s.
I'm sorry.
And the 3 6'6s, and he got 6'4" in his second attempt. And because he missed it on his first attempt, that cost him second place. Like,
okay.
The tiebreakers go, he got 4th. He was disappointed by it, but he'll get discus on Saturday.
Okay.
He'll get pole vault on Saturday, and then they'll run the relay. I mean, he's got a pretty good shot on the pole vault. He went 14-1, and he got a new pole. So, it'll be interesting to see how he does at pole vault.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see in a discus too with an ankle. I mean, because of the way you move in a discus, I wonder how that'll be.
And Alabama will be there, and I believe Auburn on Saturday. I originally thought they were going to be there today, Friday, but only Nebraska was there on Friday, and that was Ed Foley watching him down in the pit jump. Iowa head coach is there to watch the shot putters.
The Iowa head coach.
No, not the head coach. One of their assistant coaches, Cade Pieper from Norfolk Catholic.
Yeah, fair.
Broke a record, and he was there to watch that.
A head coach can't be out.
No, they call that the Saban rule,
right?
In the spring, because when Saban used to go out in the spring, it would just be like a rock star going around, and it almost became impossible because you're not really supposed to talk to the kids during the spring,
right?
That's going to change. But in the spring, it's just the assistant coaches that go out.
Head coaches cannot go out. So what you uncovered today is Carter Nelson will take a trip to Nebraska on June 23rd. He's got a Georgia trip June 2nd and a Notre Dame trip June 9th. Georgia June 2nd, Notre Dame June 9th, Nebraska June 23rd. What did he say about any other trips? Officials.
I think those are the three right now, and he's potentially looking at some other ones. Alabama, Penn State, maybe Auburn. I mean, the teams and I think that's where you got to look at the teams that have actually come to Omaha to see him. I think that's what you got to go to first.
Or Ainsworth
and Omaha both.
Okay.
Yeah, to come to Nebraska to see him.
Okay.
Nebraska, Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee, Ole Miss have all been here. Notre Dame has already seen him. Penn State on the radar. So I think that's the big thing is what teams this spring have been up to see him in person. And Penn State's one of them. Notre Dame's one of them. I don't know where Ole Miss is at, but the visit rule now, you can take unlimited visits after July 1. You can take up to 5 in June. So Nelson has got 3 locked in.
Yeah.
And ideally, he would have liked to make his decision before the season starts. But he goes, that could change. I mean, there is a chance that maybe he delays it longer, and we'll see kind of where that all goes. But
okay. That's a good update on Carter Nelson, Sean.
It's also notable, though, for him to take these visits, it's really hard just to even get out of Ainsworth. Like, I just want to trivia here. Where do you think he has to fly out of to go on official?
Well,
visits?
I mean, would he fly out of like Sioux Falls?
So there's 3 options: Sioux Falls,
okay,
Grand Island,
okay,
or Omaha.
Yeah.
And when he goes to Georgia, they're going to have a car pick him up in Ainsworth at 5 a.m. to drive him to Omaha.
Georgia?
Yeah.
Really?
Because they can do that. It's part of the trip. And a car service will drive you and take you to the airport, and then you fly out of, Omaha airport. So you'll drive 4 or 5 hours just to take a 2-hour flight.
Yeah. Fascinating.
And I mean, that has to be part of the discussion. Because anywhere you go besides Nebraska, it's going to be really, really hard for your family to see you play.
Because it's not real easy if you're in Nebraska.
I mean, both Jake and Sandy Nelson coach and teach at Ainsworth.
Right.
Jake Nelson coaches track, basketball, and football.
Well, yeah.
Sandy Nelson, or Sandy's a coach for volleyball and basketball as well, I believe. So I just think for the family's sake, is he okay going somewhere where they may only get down there once a year if they're lucky? Where at Nebraska, you could theoretically make almost all the home games,
but not easily. Still not easy.
Honestly, you would prefer an 11 a.m. game because you could leave at like 6 a.m, make the game.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know where that ranks in there.
But is it a priority at all?
Right. I don't know that
for the Nelsons with the distance. Are they just like, you go where you're going to get developed to go to the NFL? And he did tell me that going to a place that has a winning program is a priority. So that does get your attention about Nebraska, because not a lot of winning's going on here.
Right.
All right. Headline number 4, Logan Smothers. Is he coming back to Nebraska? Is the door open for him to come back for Nebraska? Where's he looking? This is what I can tell you. I can give you a little update here on what I know.
Okay.
Logan Smothers graduates Saturday.
Yes.
And his focus this week has been graduating.
Okay.
So getting that done. with that said, there's been a number of teams that have reached out to Logan Smothers. And I think you have to if you're Logan Smothers, you have to sift through the attention you're getting because some of these teams are just looking at you as a really, really good insurance policy. And some maybe want you to come in and try to win the job. So does he want to be a number 2 again, win the job? But really, ultimately, the biggest priority, I think, for Logan Smothers is getting closer to family because his family and him are really close. Mom and dad have been to every game. Even during the COVID 2020 year, they went to a lot of those games. And they've driven over 15 hours to watch every one of his games at Nebraska.
Yeah, and you wrote it. There's some jobs that he has a legitimate shot at. Jacksonville State.
With
UAB,
Rich Rodriguez.
Yeah, Jacksonville State with Rich Rod. UAB with Trent Dilfer. And West Virginia. Now, West Virginia's not close. Obviously, the other 2 are. But those are legitimate chances.
Those are the likely ones for me. That's where he probably ends
really?
up. UAB and Jacksonville State, for what he's looking for, an opportunity to start and close to home, that's 2 great options.
He's had some big-time schools reach out. I mean, Syracuse sought to visit. Notre Dame sought to visit. West Virginia. Florida Atlantic sought to visit. They wanted him to visit. He's had a good
A&M, Central Florida,
yeah,
Mississippi State, UAB,
yep, Utah State. Yeah,
yes.
he's had some good schools. So yeah. And now you at this point, you do not think he'll be back at Nebraska.
I don't think it's likely. Here's the biggest thing: he's got his degree.
Yeah,
he's walking out of here Saturday with a degree in hand. New coach, didn't go through spring with a new coach. I think for him, it's like, this is a perfect opportunity to start fresh. I got my degree at this university. I loved my time here.
They did.
But I think he's thinking about his family now, too.
Yeah, I think he did. Remember, I mean, the only thing I'm going off is the last time he talked to the media. And he made it very clear he liked it here, liked it school-wise, liked his teammates, liked the program. So I don't think he was in any rush to leave. But it doesn't. I mean, this is a good update because that question is out there still. Is there a chance he'd come back? And it doesn't look like it.
No, and Logan's really private. He's not going to say much about this stuff. NIL, not a priority. I know some of the teams that have reached out, NIL gets brought up, and he's not worried about NIL.
Like, he wasn't here.
No, like, I can tell you within the collective, almost every scholarship guy gets some sort of opportunity. And he didn't really even respond. He didn't care. Like, it wasn't even a priority for him to get NIL.
Interesting, Sean.
So, yeah, I mean, and I want to talk about NIL real quick before we move on to the next headline, because I thought On3 had an interesting article about NIL and
yes.
how it's changed so much. It's not just high school driven. In fact, it's phasing away from writing big checks to unproven 18-year-olds to more writing the big checks for really, really good freshman and sophomore transfers.
Well, it's a fascinating development because what Ernest Hausman's a good example. If you have a true freshman who makes his mark early in your program, like Ernest Hausman or AJ Allen. Now, Sean, I know it's kind of harsh to say this, but teams will come after your guy. They'll recruit right off your roster, right? And I think do people understand that, Sean?
Well, and
people understand that,
and they can get to you, and that's can you retain your players as much as can you go out and sign new guys with NIL? I mean, that's more of NIL now, is more retaining the ones that you have. They're going to be good.
Yes and no. I mean, I don't think that, Sean. I think it would be inaccurate to say that with every player that's a straight up bidding war, because we just covered the fact that Logan Smothers' NIL was inconsequential to him. I'm not sure that Ernest Hausman, it just became a straight up bidding war. Michigan's offering me more, I'm gone. I don't think it was
no.
that. I think there's some players where that's the case. I do. I think there's some players where it's literally school X is giving me this. This is what I need.
Like a year ago, like Casey Rogers, it felt like, he saw what O'Shawn Mathis was probably getting to come here. He didn't have anything close to that. And he's like, I'm going to put my name in the portal and get money.
Right. Now, but it's not the thing you have to do as a fan and a media member is be very careful not to throw a blanket over these conversations, because these kids are different. They're not all the same. They don't all think of it the same way. So I don't know, but it's fascinating. the big takeaway from that article for me was the On3 article to which you refer was, if you're Nebraska and you're not in the upper echelon, you're not a top 15 team, and you have a true freshman who plays well.
Ernest Hausman, AJ Allen.
Yeah, there's some danger there. Now, there is. You want him to play well, but you understand, okay, he's playing well, and you've said it many times, Hausman went to Michigan in Ann Arbor this year and had a bang-up game. Looked great. Well, Michigan noticed.
And Ohio State noticed too.
Yeah, let's get him.
He visited Ohio State, Iowa, and Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan's they got a little depth issue at linebacker. Not terrible, but they have a little depth issue. They had an injury, and they're looking for pass rushers. Hausman, I mean, he's not an edge rusher, but he can get to the quarterback, athletic. So there you go. And Hausman can meet their academic standards, which are fairly rigid. So there you go. But yeah, that's a fascinating article. It's sort of to the detriment of high school recruiting, what's happening out there. Teams, big time teams, are looking at other rosters.
And Steve, what happens when you transfer once?
You're locked in to that school.
And so there's a real value financially.
Right.
If you can get an Ernest Hausman,
you got it.
And you lock him in,
right?
That's good money spent.
Right. Because the high school kid you might have, and then he might leave.
And you might spend a lot of money for a really good high school recruit, and then he could leave you.
Yeah, who leaves?
And that's bad money spent.
Yeah, Hausman's locked in at Michigan. AJ Allen's locked in at Miami. I mean, people really got upset with me last season when I just said in a tweet that AJ Allen's got to be a hot commodity in the NIL market. Man, I got hammered. I just got hammered by fans. I don't think they understood what the deal was. That's the way it's kind of working.
He was making good NIL money, though. I have pretty good.
I know you do.
Information on that, and as he was
making real money,
as his play improved, his NIL opportunities and money went up higher last year. So that was not the issue. And I read some people try to say that Nebraska lowballed Dylan Raiola. Well, now we know that Dylan Raiola doesn't plan to take any NIL money his first year.
Right. There's been reports.
There's a lot of narrative reporting on just anonymous people, but what we know is Dylan Raiola, Arch Manning, some of these guys, they're not taking NIL.
Not taking money. He wants to earn it. So he's not. That's not a factor.
And I think it is. I mean, it's a good point. Like, you're going to give some kid $2 million that's never played before.
Well, some schools will do it. I mean, UT's done it. Tennessee. I mean, Sean, I don't begrudge anybody who does it.
How much money did we hear that Michigan State receiver got in the portal? Was it 6? 8?
5 to 7.
5 to 7. So
excuse me, 500,000 to 700,000. That's the market
for a top guy.
Yeah, 500,000 to 700,000. That was the price range, and we didn't hear that from somebody who doesn't. We heard that from somebody who knows very intimately.
Well, and we know like the market for like a Casey Thompson was about 200.
Yeah,
for a quarterback like that.
Yeah, yeah.
McNamara, Iowa, I've heard 250.
There you go.
So, like, I mean, you get kind of the bear.
That's for a season, right?
Yeah,
that's for
all season. And a lot of people don't understand NIL contract stuff. When you sign these service contracts, they're 1 year. So at the end of December or January, when the year's over, you have to do a new one. And
how would people know? I mean, now On3 does a good job of covering it, but it's not. You don't see a lot of coverage of NIL in mainstream media. Correct me if I'm wrong.
On3 is like one of the only places that does.
Right.
I mean, Pete Nakos, Jeremy Crabtree. I mean, they're incredible. What some of the like. And then the latest story they talked about were schools of having multiple collectives and how big of a detriment that can be for a school. You have to have one strong backed collective for an athletic department in order to kind of push through. And
because with two, there's some confusion,
and it creates issues. So Nebraska technically really only has one, but the athletic department still endorses more than one. Yeah. So it's an interesting conversation.
Creates confusion.
Because there's spots to donate money to the other collectives still, and it's on the university's website. But we know there's really only one that's operable right now, that's giving lots of money, that's committed to millions of dollars to paying Husker student athletes. So it'll be interesting to see kind of some of these NIL things in the conversations to come. All right, finally, headline number 5, busy summer camp season. We know that Nebraska is going to have satellite camp SIP the first week of June one at Mary Hardin Baylor, which is right outside Waco, in Belvin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to have another one at Houston Christian on June 6th on a Tuesday. And Matt Rule and his staff, a number of the coaches will be at these events. But we also learned this week, Nebraska plans to host a postgraduate camp in mid-June. And this is going to be a camp for players that are in college. So if you're a transfer portal guy, somebody with available eligibility on June 13th, or even a junior college player, they will host a camp for those players, a 2-hour deal. And my guess is it's just like, let's see who shows up. I mean,
well, let's see who looks good. Sean, now listen, this is a tryout camp in some ways, right?
2 hours. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? And largely, which is innovative. And this is an example of something that it's a sign of the times. This is what you do now. It makes sense. It just makes a lot of sense, but it's fascinating. Sean, think about it. A Nebraska football postgraduate camp. You never would have seen this 5 years ago.
No.
Now, you wouldn't even have dreamed it. But now, yeah, you're bringing in players who have played. Basically, Sean, am I going too far to say this is like a tryout?
Well, and there are so many players.
Am I going too far?
No, I mean, it is.
Yeah.
And it might even be a tryout to get a walk-on spot for some of these guys. Not even a scholarship spot, because that it's leverage. If a guy is in there and doesn't have any other offers, you might be able to get one of these really good players as a 1-year walk-on.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot of value, but what it tells you about Rule, I mean, they're just going to be innovative and continuing to find new ways to look and evaluate prospects, whether it's satellite camps in Texas, whether it's a fullback camp, a team camp, and now a postgraduate camp. And
it's great. $25. I mean, come on.
Do you have any eligibility?
No.
$25, man. Let's
strap it up.
We show up. We come and pay and work out for $25.
I'm 56.
I know.
I don't think I can maneuver very fast anymore.
I still can't believe Robin tried out for the Nebraska basketball. It was like a World Herald story when he was a fellow writer there, and they had him do like an expose where he tried out for the team.
Oh, interesting.
And he went through and did the workouts. And I mean, Robin didn't play high school varsity basketball.
Oh boy. Yeah.
He had to try out for the Husker team.
Well, this kind of stuff is fascinating to me, Sean. So we'll see what comes out of it. And I wouldn't be surprised. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if something does come out of it. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
Graduation, though, Saturday. Players will be off for about 2 weeks.
Till the 30th or 31st.
Coaches will be out again next week, though. I know Coach Foley will have 3 days out next week. A lot of schools are done this next week. No one's going to be in school really after Memorial Day.
Okay.
So you have 168 days that you can be out right now for the staff. Divided by 10.
Okay.
Over the spring. So it comes out to 16 to 17 days per coach. Foley today, he mentioned to me he's on day 14 right now. So he's got 3 more next week. He'll get to 17.
Okay.
And so you really try to parcel it. So if you had this conversation off air, why not have like Bob Wager with Foley at track? Well, that would be 2 of your days. So for each coach is a day.
Okay.
You have 4 coaches there at one place, you would burn 4 days.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
You have to be a little strategic with the days, and you can't talk to these recruits in the spring.
Right.
I mean, it's a different deal. You're just there to watch them.
Is there still bumps?
Yeah, but there aren't going to be bumps at the state track meet.
No,
there's too many eyes.
Too many eyes.
If there's a bump, it's like in a closed door locker room office.
Right.
I mean, where nobody can see what's going on.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well,
good job, Sean.
Lots going on.
Hey, Sean, it's sort of a fascinating time of year right now. There is a lot going on. And what I would say is watch this Kaelin thing very closely.
Yeah, Daniel Kaelin, the wheels kind of began to go in motion with Raiola. Then Daniel announces his decommit on Friday. And here we are on Friday afternoon. We're on commit watch now. It'll be interesting to see where that all goes. Make sure you stay on HuskerOnline.com. We will keep you up to date with all the latest. We got a great special right now, too. 6 months of access for $29.99. Like, follow, subscribe to us here on the YouTube page or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type in Husker Online. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan.